summoning those with the minds to hear and the madness to understand. This whisper stirred in a place no cartographer dared chart, in a forgotten expanse once ruled by cloaked judges and spectral sovereigns. It was there, among the ruins of crushed empires and melted clocks, that the architect awoke. The architect was not a man, though he had once worn that shape. In a time before time, he had devised the first schedules, not merely of hours or seasons, but of eons. He charted the revolutions of galaxies, etched the rhythm of law and chaos upon stone, and built the court beyond the sky. There, draped in robes, stitched from gravity and breath, he wrote the laws of the great year. The great year was not a measurement of time. It was the breath of eternity itself, a slow exhalation that birthed civilizations in their silent extinction. Those who could read its glyphs knew that every age of man, every birth of philosophy, every fall of empire followed a deeper rotation, an invisible celestial wheel grinding beneath the visible universe. It was said that every time the great year turned, a tribunal convened in the folds of a higher reality to weigh the worth of existence. From this trial came the laws, from the laws came the constitutions, and from the constitutions came the illusions that mortals called nations, peoples, and parliaments. The Tories, the Whigs, the Syndicalists, all mere actors on a stage long constructed by those who understood the deeper script. In London, beneath the Thames, there existed a room that was never built. It was remembered only in the minds of madmen and hidden in the folds of architectural plans dismissed by the crown. This room, circular and deep, had no doors and no windows, yet it breathed. Into this breathing chamber descended Clara Morrell, a historian of outlawed political philosophies and daughter of a judge who had vanished after attempting to classify the oldest laws of Albion. Clara had traced him through speeches, through footnotes in books banned before she was born, and through whispers left on statues no one could remember erecting. She found herself driven by a compulsion not her own, as though her thoughts were scripted by an older mind buried beneath Westminster. She did not enter the chamber through any known path. One moment she stood before a sealed underground wall. The next she stepped through it, as though it were water. Inside, the air was thick with incense that smelled of blood and ink. At the center stood a monolith etched with writing so old it refused to be seen directly. She felt it in her bones, in the curl of her spine, in the grinding of her molars. It was the constitutional axis, the physical record of the laws of the great year. The axis told her many things. It revealed that what men called realism and romanticism were not ideologies but forces, eternally at war beneath the skin of the world. Realism was the stone in the sill in the bureaucracy of stars, the cruel logic of sequence. Romanticism was the fire and the scream, the unruly song of forests, the revolt of blood against order. Each age of the world swung like a pendulum between these poles, and each swing brought war, famine, revolution, and renewal. It told her of the ancient Tories, not as mere partisans, but as the priests of continuity. They safeguarded the rights of hierarchy and the rituals of rule, anchoring the minds of men to thrones carved from myth. The Whigs, their rivals, had once been rebels, dreamers who bargained with the stars for the right to change, but both had long forgotten their origins and now danced like marionettes in a theater of fading relevance. Clara saw a courtroom suspended in space, built of frozen time and the dust of dead civilizations. A trial was underway. The defendants were not individuals, but epochs. The age of faith, the age of industry, the age of reason. The judge wore no face, only a crown of orbiting worlds. And its gavel was a collapsing sun. She saw the Constitution of the United Kingdom not as paper and parchment, but as a living thing. It had veins, hearts, and claws. It fed on tradition and whispered to those in power, seducing them with the promise of continuity while hiding the practice or the price, a slow petrification of the soul. From this vision, Clara did not return whole. She emerged with new laws inked behind her eyes, and her speech became laced with ancient parliamentary phrases that bent the will of those who heard them. Governments began to fracture, old parties dissolved overnight, new factions arose bearing names that had not been uttered since the time before Magna Carta. The architect stirred again. He saw in Clara the renewal of the cycle, the arrival of the penultimate verdict. The great year had reached its apex. Soon the axis would turn. The tribunal would reconvene, and all things that had known order would be asked to justify their continued existence. As cities slipped, the black column rose again in the hollow seat. Its surface bled syllables. Across oceans, dreamers and madmen began to speak in the same tongue. In the shadowed basement of universities, new doctrines were taught, not in lectures, but in trance. The world began to remember what it had agreed to forget. And so the clock turned, the stars aligned, the courtroom doors opened, and the law, older than gods, began to speak again.